Future Mr. Olympia. Is that what Carlos Thomas Jr. is destined for? We go through why and why not that might be the case in the IFBB Pro League for him. Plus, does he have a new coach? And we have some freaky recent updates from him. What's up, Desktopers? Xavier Wills here for Desktop Bodybuilding, and we are back for another video. And today we're discussing Carlos Thomas Jr., a man who potentially could be a future Mr. Olympia. We're going to go over his team, who his new coach might be right now compared to his former coach, and maybe why that is. Also, we've got the freaky recent physique updates, plus much more, but let's get into a few different factors. Carlos Thomas Jr. is definitely taking his time in terms of getting on stage, and this was the same in his amateur career as well, taking years between getting on stage. So you can see this photo here from back in the 2016 NPC Nationals, and you can see how far he's come when you see him at the 2021 NPC Nationals, where we last saw him on stage, where we also had Justin Shire, who hasn't competed yet as an IFBB Pro, but is very soon. Nate Spear also got his pro card there, and many others, and he actually went on to win the overall at that 2021 NPC Nationals. It's sort of like a Phil Heath sort of approach, where he took time between getting on stage. He chose to actually turn down competing at Mr. Olympia the first year he qualified, and that could be something that Carlos Thomas Jr. decides to do as well. Say Carlos actually competes later this year, qualifies for Mr. Olympia, he might take a year off and actually decide to come back in 2024, taking his health into consideration, which we'll get into later in this video. It might even be a wise idea, even if he did qualify for the 2023 Mr. Olympia. So let's start with his team and his father. It's really a father and son team with Carlos Thomas Jr. and Carlos Thomas Sr. So Carlos Thomas Sr. has been very hands-on. You can see him in interviews with Carlos Thomas Jr. He's always at the shows. He's really his number one supporter, which is awesome to see. He definitely leans on the side of supportive rather than overbearing, like a Matty Ferrigno, which is Lou Ferrigno's father, which we saw back in the Pumping Iron movies, and apparently behind the scenes he wasn't the nicest of fathers to Lou Ferrigno. He seems more like a Nick Walker's parents type deal, where you got Tracy Walker, which is Nick's mum, and she even comments on my videos and watches them live and after the fact as well. So shout out to Nick Walker's parents and Tracy Walker. I can't remember your father's name, Nick, but he seems like an awesome supporter too, always wearing the t-shirts and whatnot. But Carlos Thomas Sr., you can see here, this was on the post where Carlos announced that he's actually out for 2023, at least the early comps of 2023, due to health reasons. And you can see there, it was at Carlos Thomas Jr., then he puts heart you. So it's like he really is that supportive dad, and you can see it publicly, and I think Carlos reflects that as well. So it's great that he has his father, in the gym, outside of the gym, supporting and pushing Carlos as well. And now we get to the coaches. So originally, when I started putting this video together, I believed Carlos's coach was Cash Guidry, who has put tons of photos of them up together. I've sort of just known that over the years, and I assumed he was coaching him in terms of training in the gym, and also for the diet and supplement aspect of it as well. This guy's worked with Sadiq Hadzovic and worked with him from the early years. He has 23 pro wins. He has obtained over 100 plus IFBB Pro cards, so he's more than qualified in terms of his resume. And you can see here, he was actually 10.5 weeks out of competing. Carlos was looking absolutely insane, mind you. That is just crazy. And you can see contest prep for Carlos Thomas Jr. IFBB Pro debut is underway as we sit 10.5 weeks out. So, and he also said we should hit the stage 20 plus pounds heavier and in better condition than we did in the December 2021 at the NPC Nationals. So it's going to be under 2 years, and he's expecting to be over 20 pounds heavier, plus also better condition. So what's that? That has to be over 20 pounds of muscle. So whether he'll actually be able to achieve that would be a huge feat, and that would put Carlos Thomas Jr. in elite company. But it appears that Carlos actually has a new coach, at least by the tag he put up on Instagram, and I don't know why he'd actually tag in another coach unless he had actually made that switch. So Andrew Vu was tagged in this post, and he works with some awesome athletes. Miss Olympia Natalia Coelho, 5th place Women's Physique Olympia Ivy Rain, Miss Olympia figure runner-up Jessica Reyes Padilla, Also worked with Hunter Labrada, Bo Lewis, Mo Shaban, many more. So he's a more of an accomplished coach in terms of who he works with, and his athletes tend to be right up at the top. So he's obviously an accomplished guy and a guy that knows what he's doing. Now we know Natalia Coelho is actually really big into her health, and more specifically her gut health. So this might be part of a reason why Carlos actually made the switch from Cash to Andrew Vu. Not saying Cash doesn't know about that stuff, I have no idea, I don't really know too much about him personally. But Andrew Vu seems to be a knowledgeable guy in that situation, and I don't think Natalia would have someone coaching her that doesn't have the health aspect at least attached to it in terms of gut health and all those sorts of things. So that might be the reason why Carlos actually made the switch to Andrew Vu. And you can see him here with his athletes, and they literally just have positive comment after positive comment. And I haven't heard a bad thing about Andrew Vu, at least so far. So as I mentioned earlier, the last time Carlos Thomas Jr. was on stage was at that 2021 NPC Nationals, where he won the overall and looked fantastic and beat a really good Justin Shire, who I think will make waves in the IFBB Pro League this year. But we don't know how he's going to look. So the one thing that I'll say about this package that he brought to the stage, it was conditioned enough for sure. But in the IFBB Pro League, he'll have to come in a little bit sharper than this. I think he can do that for sure, and if he has the extra muscle, that's going to push harder against the skin. So I think that if Carlos can come in really, really good condition, then he's going to be dangerous to anyone in the IFBB Pro League. So what might hold Carlos Thomas Jr. back? Conditioning, as I mentioned in the last part of this video, that could be a reason, but why? Why could he suffer with conditioning? It could be due to his health condition, which is ulcerative colitis. So basically, ulcerative colitis, you can see on the screen now, it says a chronic inflammatory bowel disease that causes inflammation in the digestive tract. Ulcerative colitis is usually only in the innermost lining of the large intestine, the colon, and the rectum. Forms range from mild to severe. Having ulcerative colitis puts a patient at increased risk of developing colon cancer. Symptoms include rectal bleeding, bloody diarrhea, abdominal cramps, and pain. Treatment includes medication and surgery. It says obviously requires medical diagnosis, lab test, imaging, all required. And it says chronic can last for years or be lifelong, which I know of already before doing this, but obviously a serious condition, and he needs to make sure that's under control. And by his last post, it seems like things are getting on the right track at least. So that's a positive for him, but I know water retention, when obviously people are having flare-ups and a lot of this sort of stuff is happening, their body can hold fluid. And I know this from knowing people or knowing someone with ulcerative colitis, and if he's able to get that under control, his body will only function that much better. So the fact that he's been battling this and looking this good is absolutely crazy to me. So let's focus on why Carlos Thomas Jr. can actually achieve this feat and become a future Mr. Olympia. He's only 29 years of age. The other thing is, he hasn't been competing a lot as well. He hasn't been bashing his body down. He's been taking that time to grow, which some people say you grow better when you're competing more, maybe because you have more motivation to actually keep pushing and pushing harder. But Carlos has seemed to grow really well, having these long extended off seasons and focusing on his career outside of bodybuilding. So I think that's a great reason. He's fresh and still in his 20s as well. Now he's 5'6". Could this hold him back? Now let's look at the top three from Mr. Olympia last year. We have Nick Walker, who's about 5'6", 5'6.5" in third place. Second place, we have Derek Lunsford. I think he's about 5'6" too. And then in first place, we have Hadi Choopan, who I also think is about 5'6". So the height thing shouldn't really work against him as long as he can have those crazy proportions, which he does. Sort of Derek Lunsford-esque, sort of Keon Pearson-esque. When you see photos of this guy by himself, because of his waist, because of his huge quads, because of his huge arms, you gotta really look at it. The dude isn't missing much whatsoever, and he is 5'6". When you see photos of him by himself, he sort of looks like he could be like 5'5", 5'4", just because he's so, I don't know, so heavily muscled. But when he stands next to these other guys, I'm very intrigued to see how that actually looks. And I think he compares well with a Derek Lunsford, who's, I think, moving up there and is sort of potentially the heir apparent to the Mr. Olympia title at the moment. Now, I'm not saying he has the freaky levels of hanging muscle that Derek has yet, but he has some pretty crazy muscle. So I think Carlos Thomas Jr. definitely is a potential future Mr. Olympia. If you can get that health under control, I think it's a great move. working with Andrew Vu. No discredit to Cash because I don't really know too much about him, and he's obviously had success in his own right. But Andrew Vu has coached and proven successful people at the very, very top and brought them in outstanding condition. So let me know your thoughts. Do you think the move for Carlos Thomas Jr. working with Andrew Vu is a good move? Do you think he could be a future Mr. Olympia? And where do you think we'll actually see him on stage in 2023? Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, smash that like button, also subscribe and hit the notification bell button. That way you'll be notified of every video that goes up from myself, Xavier Wills at Desktop Bodybuilding. So that's it for this one. I'm Xavier Wills, this is Desktop Bodybuilding, and we are out.